Good evening. IUC sources have claimed that a single UFF godfather is masterminding the terror group's current wave of killings in Belfast. It's been claimed that the man is training a new breed of recruits in killing.
The RUC were this afternoon back at the scene of the latest UFF murder, trying to find new witnesses to the killing of hairdresser Sean Hughes at his Falls Road salon on Tuesday. He was one of 3 Catholics gunned down by the UFF in the past 11 days. The other victims were housewife Mary Teresa Dowds de Morillon, shot at her Fort William Park home at the end of August, and businessman Michael Edwards, a father of 6, shot at his finicky home last week. They were all described as innocent victims, and police sources believe they were shot by young, raw recruits to the UFF. It's thought that a UFF godfather has been training up a new breed of killers in Belfast, perhaps numbering between 25 and 30. Police sources believe the godfather, who they suspect but can't prove has been involved in a string of terrorist attacks, is a hero to the young UFF men who obey his orders without question. It's believed the young recruits are blooded into murder with soft targets who will present no problems, which might be expected if the victims were leading Republicans. At the scene of the reconstruction of Sean Hughes' murder, a senior detective refused to discuss the possibility of a godfather masterminding recent events, but he did stress that Tuesday's killing had been carried out with calmness.
We've information that travelled up the Falls Road prior to the killing, and that the killers parked at the junction of Donegal Road and Falls Road and calmly walked into Mr Hughes' hair salon, killed him, calmly walked back to the vehicle and then drove down the Donegal Road.
Calmly, it does appear to have been a very calm, unhurried killing. Are you surprised at that?
Not surprised. That seems to be the trend with these killings at the moment. There's no doubt about it that these are cold, ruthless killers, and I'm not surprised by their demeanour and their attitude during this killing.
Police said they'd received a good response from the public to pleas for information about the killer's car, which was abandoned at the B&Q depot at Greencastle after the shooting.
Meanwhile, at the funeral of the latest UFF murder victim, hairdresser Sean Hughes, a priest spoke of the despair, helplessness and fear in the community in the wake of recent loyalist killings. Hundreds of people attended the funeral to the city cemetery only a short distance from where the killing happened.
He and his family lived at Carryduff, but Sean Hughes was buried from his father's home in Knockdew Park in Andersonstown this morning. Sean Hughes was married with 3 children. His wife Marie had spoken with him just minutes before he was shot dead on Tuesday. 2 UFF gunmen killed him as he worked in his hairdresser's shop at the junction of the Falls and Donegal Road. The Requiem Mass was held at St Michael the Archangel Church on Finicky Road North, where on Monday the funeral service for another UFF murder victim, Michael Edwards, also took place. Sean Hughes' parish priest, Father Felix McGuckin from Drumboe, spoke of the feelings of horror within the community.
The news of the tragic death of Sean Hughes came as a terrible shock for all of us. We are filled with a sense of despair, of helplessness, of fear. We are bewildered by the savage brutality of this depraved act on a good man in the prime of life, going about his daily business.
The auxiliary bishop of Down and Connor, Dr. Anthony Farquhar, who spoke at Mr Edwards' funeral on Monday, said all the victims of recent times had one thing in common.
Each, in his or her own way, has been shown to be a giant of goodness, standing tall among evil people. I find it very difficult even to begin to analyze what thinking lies behind such killings. But of one thing I am certain, that evil people cannot cope with the presence of goodness in their midst.
Mr Hughes was buried at the city cemetery, only a short distance away from the shop where he was killed.
The funeral has taken place of Sean Hughes, the Catholic hairdresser murdered by the UFF on Tuesday. Mr Hughes, who was 40, was shot dead at his salon on the Falls Road. He was married with 3 children. Darren McIntyre reports.
The funeral left the home of Sean Hughes' parents in Andersonstown. His father, Seamus, helped carry the coffin. Schoolgirls from the nearby St Genevieve Secondary School lined up as the cortege passed on its way to St Michael the Archangel's Church in Finnehy. Among the mourners there were several Protestant ministers, as at the other funerals of recent Catholic murder victims. Father Felix McGuckin said Mr Hughes had been a devoted father, a family man, and fundamentally a good man. He said that however much the recent murders filled people with a sense of despair, hopelessness and fear, people should remember that God was never nearer. Bishop Anthony Farquhar said the murderers were evil, in contrast to their victims.
They have all been people of goodness. A goodness that was visible particularly within their own family circles. People whose deaths were followed by an instant chorus of praise, far beyond the level of speaking good of the dead. Each, in his or her own way, has been shown to be a giant of goodness, standing tall among evil people.
He said that murderers were afraid of goodness, of people who loved, and people who tried to cross religious and community divides. Mr Hughes was buried afterwards at the city cemetery.
Detectives appealing for information about the murder of Mr Hughes stopped motorists and pedestrians this afternoon outside the hairdressing salon where he was killed. The actual car used by the gunmen was parked where its driver had waited for his two terrorist accomplices as they walked calmly across the road to murder Mr Hughes. The police say they hope such a distinctive car will jog people's memories. People who saw it being taken at Snugville Street in the Shankill, or driven along the falls to the Donegal Road junction, or abandoned at a DIY store car park in Green Island, where another car was probably waiting. Forensic examination of the car has been completed. The police say this afternoon's exercise is a regular part of an investigation into a terrorist murder. They say similar appeals for information in the past have been productive. And the senior detective in charge of the investigation said the exercise would be regarded as a success if it produced just one good witness.